His eyes roamed around the eerily quiet room that felt almost like a crime scene, cold, abandoned, drowning in an unsettling silence. Vian! This time he yelled out her name in distress, panic steaming up his blood. Upon no answer, he was about to rush out of the room when raindrops rattling violently against the glass window caught his attention. Something about this moment spiked his anxiety, making him feel his heart beating like it never did before. With slow steps, he reached the window and peeked out just to feel his ground slipping under his feet. Vian! His lips trembled as her name escaped his mouth in the form of a broken whisper. She was outside, standing in the merciless storm, all alone. The balcony lights flickered weakly against the storm, illuminating her soaked figure. Her arms were wrapped around herself, her head slightly bowed, as the merciless downpour battered her exhausted frame. A crack of thunder ripped through the sky, and she flinched. Jungkook's blood ran cold. That was the first time he had seen her flinch, the first time he had seen her so defeated. He did not think, he just moved. His hand slammed against the terrace door, rattling it violently, but it did not budge. Locked. Who the hell? Rage coiled inside him, but panic was faster. Without hesitation, he stepped back and drove his kick into the glass. The glass broke and came crashing down with only one kick. Wind and rain instantly lashed against him as he stepped out. He did not have to call her, as by the sound of breaking glass, Vine already knew he was there. She stiffened, and Jungkook rushed towards her, reaching out, but the moment she felt him near her, she jerked back violently, hitting the cold railing. "Don't touch me," she gasped, her voice raw. Jungkook froze, his stomach twisted as she shrank away from him, her soaked clothes clinging to her trembling palm. "Don't worry, that's what I fear." Holding herself tighter, her unseeing eyes clouded with something he had never seen before in them. Fear. She was afraid of him. At this moment, he could read her like an open book. He knew that she was thinking he locked her outside in the storm. A lump formed in his throat as this thought sliced through him, left him bleeding in ways he wouldn't show. His jaw clenched. Without another word, he lunged forward. "Jungkook!" She gasped as his arms locked around her, strong and nearly. She struggled, her cold fingers pushed weakly against his hard chest. "Let go!" shrieked. "No," stubbornly refused. She resisted, yet he persisted. His grip only tightened, his beastly body shielding her from the relentless storm. "Jungkook," I said no. Stared at her, his warm breath hitting her trembling cold lips. "Never." His voice was a growl, dark and possessive. He scooped her before she could protest, pressing her against his chest as he flowed back inside. His heartbeat hammering against her ear. She fought, her fist landing hard against his shoulder, but he did not care. Didn't let go as if that was never an option for him. He kicked the broken door of the terrace open, stepping into the room, his boots crushing the glass faces in the wind. The warmth inside was a sharp contrast to the freezing storm outside, but she was still shaking, her body still rigid in his arms. Jungkook lowered her onto the bed, but when he tried to pull back, she flinched away, and a fresh stab of pain bloomed in his chest. His lips parted, his breath coming out shakier than he wanted. "I didn't do it," he murmured, brushing aside her wet strand with careful fingers. "And I believe you, just like you always did." Indicated that as he never believed her, she does not believe him now. A single tear slipped down her cheek, lost between the raindrops still clinging to her skin. Jungkook exhaled sharply and pulled her against him again. Stronger, closer, refusing to let her go, even when she fought him in his arms. "Don't be scared," he whispered, voice trembling in a way he would never allow if she could see. "Not of me." Her face was turned away, as if shielding herself from something she could not see, continued struggling against him. "I don't need you. Leave me. I won't let you go. Not when you are shaking like this." The thunder rolled again, and this time she gasped, her fingers instinctively clutching his wet shirt instead of pushing him away. That was all it took. Her walls cracked, her body sagged against his. Her face found solace in the crook of his neck. Jungkook tightened his grip, pressing his lips against her rain-drenched hair, eyes stinging with tears that made their way out without letting her know. He silently cried in her pain. For the second time in his life, this ruthless mafia found himself breaking for her, an oblivious girl named Vine, who unknowingly had this devil dancing to her every command. Few breaths later, Wine broke out of his embrace by pushing him away. However, as soon as she came out of his warm embrace, the sudden cold made her shiver. And that's when Jungkook noticed how alluring she looked, as the cold had turned her skin into porcelain. Her cheeks flushed a soft pink from the chill, but it was the way the water clung to her clothes, pressing the curves of her perfectly sculpted figure that had his pulse quickening. He felt himself leaning in slightly, almost without realizing it. But as the drop of water dripped from his hair and landed on her lower lip, her senses got alert. Her eyes widened as she realized how close Jungkook was to her, and how close he was to losing it. "What are you doing?" pushed him by his chest once again. Jungkook cursed himself upon realizing the danger his thoughts carried for her. He took 2 seconds to come up with a good lie. "Wine?" He whispered her name, his voice hoarse, but even he did not recognize the hunger that tinged it. She tilted her head and looked into the oblivion as if she was trying to guess his intentions. "You are freezing, and I am going to change your clothes. Don't argue." Her eyes widened more. "No, don't touch me," shrieked in panic. Jungkook smirked as he successfully diverted her mind. "You are soaked through, Wine. If you don't change out of these clothes, you'll catch a fever, and I will be the one taking care of you all night, so don't even try to argue." His voice held a playful mischief that made her panic more. "I don't need your help," stubbornly stood her ground. "Look at you, as helpless as a kitten on a tree, and still refusing help. You're really something," amusingly chuckled. Wan just clenched her jaw and refrained herself from reacting further, as she knew he was enjoying teasing her. "Since your hands are working just fine, something you probably did not notice in the excitement of me changing your clothes, I will give you your clothes and turn off the lights, so that you can change in some privacy and hide what I'm about to enjoy in the future." "How can I know that you had turned off the lights?" Completely ignored his dirty words. "I'll make you touch the button. And how can I know that you aren't using a torch or a flashlight? I might be desperate, but not this much. If I wanted to do something, then I would have done it the moment I saw you soaking wet. And you have no other way than trusting me." "I have another way." "What? Get out." "You can't push your fiancé out of the room, who also happens to be a mafia king." Smirks. "I can and I will." It wasn't her words, but the coldness in her tone that wiped his smirk away. "You're so ungrateful." "Yeah, thank you for being the sole cause of my every misery." "Already fighting like a wife? That's the spirit." Mockingly encouraged her, sharply inhaled. "Get out." "Jeez, woman, calm down, I'm going." Taking clothes out of the wardrobe and handing her, Jungkook turned off the lights and made his way out. After locking the door from the outside, Jungkook spoke to her in a little louder pitch. "Call me when you're done, though I can't promise I won't pick if you take too long. You're one word away from," shouted back from inside. Jungkook laughed out loudly, before going serious again as if he had never let out a single chuckle in his entire life, and called his personal guard to guard this room, before making his way out.